The vast emptiness of space stretched out before the gleaming hull of the Earth Alliance flagship, Horizon. Its sleek design, a perfect blend of form and function, cut through the star-studded darkness with purpose. On the bridge, Commander Sarah Chen stood tall, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Status report," Sarah barked, her voice crisp and authoritative. A young officer, his uniform pristine, quickly responded, "Commander, we've entered the neutral zone between Earth and Zorgan space. No signs of hostility. Yet." Sarah nodded, a frown creasing her brow. The last few months had seen a steady increase in tensions between humanity and the Zorgan Empire. What had started as minor trade disputes had escalated into a dangerous game of interstellar chicken. Neither side wanted war, but neither was willing to back down. As Sarah pondered their next move, a communication alert chimed. "Incoming transmission from Zorgan High Command," announced the comms officer, surprise evident in her voice. "On screen," Sarah ordered, straightening her posture. The holographic display flickered, revealing the regal and imposing figure of Princess Tyla. The Zorgan royal's iridescent scales shimmered in the light, her four eyes narrowing as she gazed upon the human commander. "Greetings, Commander Chen." Zyla-Era's voice dripped with barely concealed disdain. "I trust I'm not interrupting your little patrol." Sarah kept her face neutral, years of diplomatic training kicking in. "Princess Zyla-Era, to what do we owe the pleasure?" The alien princess's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was a sign of amusement. "Oh, I merely wanted to extend an invitation. My father, the Emperor, wishes to discuss our ongoing disagreements face to face." Warning bells rang in Sarah's mind. This was unprecedented. The Zorgan Emperor rarely dealt with other species directly, preferring to work through intermediaries. "That's quite an honor, Your Highness. May I ask what prompted this sudden desire for dialogue?" Zyla-Era's upper eyes narrowed. "Let's just say that recent events have made us curious about humanity's true capabilities, or lack thereof." The insult was thinly veiled, but Sarah let it slide. "I see. And when would this meeting take place?" "In 3 Earth days," Zyla-Era replied. "On our capital world, Zorg Prime. We'll transmit the coordinates shortly." Her mandibles clicked again. "Do try to arrive on time. We know how primitive your propulsion systems are." Before Sarah could respond, the transmission cut off. The bridge fell silent, the crew looking to their commander for direction. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. This was either a tremendous opportunity or a dangerous trap. Possibly both. She turned to her second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Jack. "Thoughts?" Jack scratched his beard, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. "Smells fishy to me, Commander. The Zorgans have never invited us to their homeworld before. Why now?" Sarah nodded, agreeing with his assessment. "Prepare a secure transmission to Earth Alliance headquarters. We need to inform them of this development and await further instructions." As the crew sprang into action, Sarah's gaze drifted back to the star-filled view screen. The Zorgan Empire lay out there, vast and inscrutable. They thought humans were weak, primitive, easy to push around. A small smile played at the corners of Sarah's mouth. The Zorgans were about to learn just how wrong they were. Little did Sarah know, but on Zorg Prime, Princess Zyla-Era was engaged in a heated discussion with her father, Emperor Zixlor. The princess's scales rippled with excitement as she pressed her case. "Father, we must teach these humans a lesson. They encroach on our territory, challenge our authority. We should crush them now, before they become a true threat." Emperor Zixlor's massive form shifted on his crystalline throne. "Patience, my daughter. The humans are young, yes, but they have shown potential. We must be cautious." Zyla-Era's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Cautious? They're barely out of their stone age. Their weapons are toys compared to ours. One demonstration of our power, and they'll fall in line." The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his four eyes blinking in sequence. Finally, he spoke. "Very well. You may proceed with your plan. But be warned, Xyla. If this backfires, the consequences will be on your head." The princess bowed low, barely containing her glee. "Thank you, father. I won't disappoint you. The humans will learn their place in the galaxy, once and for all." As Xyla left the throne room, her mind was already spinning with plans. She would show everyone, especially that annoyingly composed Commander Chen, just how outmatched the humans truly were. The stage was set, the players were moving into position, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The grand hall of the Zorgan Imperial Palace glittered with an otherworldly beauty. Crystalline structures pulsed with bioluminescent light, casting eerie shadows across the gathered dignitaries. At the center of it all stood Commander Sarah Chen, her crisp Earth Alliance uniform a stark contrast to the ornate attire of the Zorgan nobles. Sarah's dark eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. Her team had spent days preparing for this moment, but nothing could have truly readied her for the alien splendor of Zorg Prime. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. The fate of humanity might well rest on what happened here today. A hush fell over the crowd as Princess Xyla made her entrance. The Zorgan royal moved with liquid grace, her iridescent scales shimmering under the pulsing lights. Four eyes, each a different shade of violet, fixed upon Sarah with predatory intensity. "Ah, the human arrives." Xyla's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I trust you found our little world adequate." Sarah bowed slightly, just enough to be polite without showing subservience. "Your hospitality has been most generous, Your Highness. Zorg Prime is truly a marvel." Xyla's mandibles clicked in what Sarah now recognized as amusement. "How quaint. I suppose even a cave seems marvelous to a creature that's just crawled out of the mud." A ripple of laughter spread through the Zorgan nobles. Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but kept her expression neutral. "We all start somewhere, Your Highness. Humanity is young, but we're quick learners." "Oh, I'm sure you are." Xyla circled Sarah, her movements reminiscent of a predator sizing up its prey. "Tell me, Commander, how does it feel to represent such a limited species? Does it not weigh heavily on you, knowing how far behind you are?" Sarah met the princess's gaze steadily. "Every species has its strengths, Your Highness. Humanity's greatest asset is our adaptability. We don't just survive challenges, we thrive on them." Xyla laughed, a sound like tinkling crystal. "Charming. You speak of challenges, yet your kind can barely leave your own solar system without assistance. Tell me, how do you hope to stand against the might of the Zorgan Empire when you can't even properly harness the power of your own sun?" The taunt hung in the air, sharp and biting. Sarah felt the eyes of every alien in the room upon her, waiting to see how the human would respond. She took a moment, choosing her words carefully. "With respect, Your Highness, technological advancement isn't everything. History is full of examples where a technologically superior force was defeated by a more determined, innovative opponent." Xyla's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting that humans could pose a threat to us? How adorably delusional." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "I'm merely pointing out that underestimating an opponent is a dangerous mistake, one that has led to the downfall of many great powers throughout history." The princess's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. "You dare to threaten us? Here, in the heart of our empire?" "Not at all, Your Highness," Sarah replied calmly. "I'm simply advocating for mutual respect and understanding between our species. After all, isn't that why we're here?" Xyla's mandibles clicked rapidly, her composure slipping. "Respect. Understanding. You're nothing but talking apes, barely out of your trees. Your civilization is a blink of an eye compared to ours. We've conquered galaxies while your ancestors were still figuring out how to make fire." The outburst echoed through the hall, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Sarah stood her ground, her expression unchanged. "And yet, here we are, Your Highness, standing before you as equals in galactic politics. Perhaps that should tell you something about humanity's potential." For a moment, Scylla Eris seemed at a loss for words. Then her eyes glittered dangerously. "Very well, human. If you're so confident in your species' abilities, perhaps a demonstration is in order." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What kind of demonstration did you have in mind?" The princess's mandibles spread in what passed for a Zorgan smile. "A contest of sorts. To prove once and for all which of our species is truly superior. Unless, of course, you're not up to the challenge." The trap was obvious, but Sarah knew she couldn't back down now. Too much was at stake. She met Scylla Era's gaze unflinchingly. "On behalf of humanity, I accept your challenge, Your Highness. Name your terms." As the assembled aliens murmured in excitement, Sarah caught a glint of satisfaction in Scylla Era's eyes. Whatever the princess had planned, it was clear she thought victory was assured. But there was something the Zorgans had yet to learn about humans. They were at their most dangerous when backed into a corner. The stage was set, the challenge issued. As Sarah prepared herself for whatever was to come, she couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. The Zorgans were about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity. The sleek Earth Alliance shuttle cut through the atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from re-entry. Inside, Commander Sarah Chen sat rigid, her mind racing with the events of the past few days. As the clouds parted, revealing the sprawling metropolis of New Beijing below, Sarah allowed herself a small sigh of relief. She was home, but the real challenge was just beginning. The shuttle touched down on a high-security landing pad atop Earth Alliance headquarters. As Sarah disembarked, she was greeted by a stern-faced woman in a crisp military uniform adorned with an impressive array of medals. "Welcome back, Commander Chen," Admiral Zhou said, her voice clipped. "I trust you have a full report ready." Sarah nodded, falling into step beside the Admiral as they entered the building. "Yes, Ma'am. Though I'm not sure you're going to like what I have to say." Inside a secure briefing room, Sarah laid out everything that had transpired on Zorg Prime. The assembled military and political leaders listened with growing concern as she described Princess Scylla Era's taunts and the subsequent challenge. "So," Admiral Zhou said when Sarah had finished, "the Zorgans think they can humiliate us with this contest." Sarah nodded. "That appears to be their intention, yes. They're confident in their technological superiority." An older man with salt and pepper hair leaned forward. "And what do you think, Commander? Can we win this challenge?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Honestly, sir, I'm not sure. The Zorgans are advanced, there's no denying that. But they're also arrogant. They've underestimated us, and that gives us an advantage." The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. Finally, Admiral Zhou spoke up. "We can't afford to lose this contest. The political ramifications would be disastrous. We need a plan." "If I may, Admiral," a young scientist interjected, her eyes shining with excitement. "I think I might have an idea." All eyes turned to the scientist as she pulled up a holographic display. "We've been working on a top-secret project codenamed Thunderbolt. It's not perfected yet, but with a push, we might be able to have it ready in time for the contest." As the scientist explained the details of Project Thunderbolt, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. It was risky, untested, but it just might work. Admiral Zhou nodded thoughtfully. "It's a gamble, but it might be our best shot. Commander Chen, you'll oversee the final stages of this project. We're putting all our resources behind this." Sarah straightened, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Understood, Admiral. We won't let Earth down." As the meeting adjourned, Sarah found herself in a quieter corner of the building, staring out at the bustling city below. The fate of humanity rested on what happened next. They had one shot to prove to the galaxy that humans weren't to be underestimated. A hand on her shoulder startled her from her thoughts. It was Jack, her second in command from the horizon. "Penny for your thoughts, Commander," he asked, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on her face. Sarah managed a small smile. "Just wondering if we're doing the right thing, Jack. Are we ready for this?" Jack chuckled, a deep, reassuring sound. "Ready or not, it's coming. But if there's one thing I've learned about humans, it's that we're at our best when our backs are against the wall." Sarah nodded, feeling the surge of determination. "You're right. The Zorgans think this challenge will prove our inferiority. Instead, we're going to show them exactly what humanity is capable of." As they looked out over the city, the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. Somewhere out there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the solar system, the Zorgans were waiting, confident in their supposed superiority. Little did they know, but humanity was about to unleash a surprise that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. Project Thunderbolt was more than just a technological marvel. It was humanity's statement to the stars. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she gazed at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. "Get ready, Princess Sila, she murmured. "You wanted to see what humans are made of. Well, you're about to find out." As night fell over Earth, lights flickered on in laboratories and workshops across the globe. Scientists, engineers, and tacticians worked around the clock, pouring their collective knowledge and creativity into Project Thunderbolt. The next few days would determine the course of human history. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion. Humanity's response was coming, and it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The darkness of space enveloped the sleek, black ship as it silently approached the glittering world of Zord Prime. Unlike the bulky Earth vessels, this craft was barely larger than a shuttle, its hull covered in light-absorbing material that made it nearly invisible to sensors. Inside the cramped cockpit, Captain Maya Patil checked her instruments one last time. Her team of 5 elite commandos sat in tense silence behind her, each lost in their own thoughts. They all knew the stakes. The fate of humanity rested on the success of their mission. Entering Zorgan atmosphere in 60 seconds, Maya announced, her voice steady despite the pressure. "Remember, we're ghosts, in and out without a trace." As the ship breached the upper atmosphere, Maya activated their experimental cloaking technology. The vessel shimmered and seemed to vanish, leaving only a faint heat distortion in its wake. They descended towards the sprawling capital city, its bioluminescent towers reaching towards the sky like glowing tentacles. Landing in a secluded area on the outskirts of the city, the team quickly disembarked. Each wore a sleek exosuit, another product of Project Thunderbolt. The suits not only enhanced their strength and speed, but also mimicked Zorgan biosignatures, allowing them to move undetected among the alien population. "All right, team," Maya said, her voice low. "You know your targets. Zhang, you're on communication systems. Rodriguez, power grid. Kim, defense networks. Ivanov, transportation. I'll handle the central computer core. Rendezvous back here in 3 hours. Good luck." With silent nods, the team split up, each heading towards their assigned sectors of the city. Maya watched them go, a mixture of pride and anxiety churning in her gut. They were the best Earth had to offer, but they were about to go up against technology far beyond their own. Maya made her way towards the central government district, her suit's camouflage adjusting to match her surroundings. The streets were alive with Zorgans going about their business, their alien forms still strange to human eyes despite years of contact. As she approached the towering structure housing the central computer core, Maya couldn't help but marvel at Zorgan architecture. The building seemed to be alive, pulsing with energy and light. But she had no time for sightseeing. With a deep breath, she activated her suit's hacking module and approached a side entrance. The door's security system was complex, but the Thunderbolt tech made short work of it. Within seconds, Maya was inside, moving swiftly through the twisting corridors. She encountered a few Zorgan workers, but her suit's camouflage held, and they passed by without a second glance. Finally, she reached the core, a massive crystalline structure that hummed with power. Maya's heart raced as she connected her suit to a nearby terminal. This was the moment of truth. As lines of alien code flashed across her helmet's display, Maya felt a surge of hope. The Zorgon systems were advanced, yes, but not impenetrable. Slowly but surely, she began to make progress, planting the seeds of chaos that would bloom when the time was right. Meanwhile, across the city, her teammates were engaged in similar tasks. Zhang slipped unnoticed into a communications hub, his fingers flying over alien keyboards as he rewrote transmission protocols. Rodriguez found her way into the bowels of a power plant, carefully adjusting the flow of energy to create subtle instabilities. Kim, the team's defense expert, had perhaps the most dangerous job. She scaled the outer wall of a military installation, using her suit's enhanced strength to climb where no human should be able to. Once inside, she began the delicate task of reprogramming weapon systems and defense grids. Ivanov, always the daredevil, had infiltrated a Zorgon shipyard. Among the massive alien vessels, he moved like a shadow, planting tiny devices that would allow human operators to take control when needed. As the 3-hour mark approached, Maya finished her work at the central core. With a final command, she severed her connection and began to make her way out. Her heart pounded in her chest, every shadow seeming to hold a potential threat. But luck, or perhaps human ingenuity, was on their side. One by one, the team members returned to the ship, each bearing news of success. As they strapped in for takeoff, a sense of grim satisfaction filled the cockpit. "Mission accomplished," Maya said as she fired up the engines. "Let's go home." As their ship rose silently into the night sky of Zord Prime, none of the Zorgons below realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. The stage was set. The trap was laid. Now, all that remained was for Commander Sarah Chen to spring it. The infiltration team's success marked a turning point in the conflict between humans and Zorgons. Though the aliens still believed in their superiority, humanity had just proven that determination, creativity, and a willingness to take risks could level even the most uneven playing field. As Earth's most daring operatives left Zorgon space, they carried with them the key to their species' future. The real battle was yet to come, but for the first time since this conflict began, humanity had a fighting chance. The grand hall of the Zorgon Imperial Palace buzzed with anticipation. Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what they believed would be the final humiliation of humanity. At the center of it all stood Princess Scylla, her scales shimmering with smug satisfaction. As the massive doors swung open, all eyes turned to see Commander Sarah Chen stride in. She wore a sleek, form-fitting suit that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, the pinnacle of human technology, though few in the room realized it. "Ah, the human returns." Scylla's voice dripped with false sweetness. "I was beginning to think you'd run away." Sarah's face remained impassive as she approached. "Humanity doesn't run from challenges, Your Highness. We're here to compete." As agreed, the princess's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Very well. Let us begin the trials that will prove, once and for all, the superiority of the Zorgon Empire." As Sarah took her place, she caught sight of her team in the crowd. Maya, Zhang, Rodriguez, Kim, and Ivanov. They nodded almost imperceptibly. Everything was in place. The first challenge was a test of strength. A massive Zorgon warrior stepped forward, his bulging muscles rippling under iridescent scales. Sarah's human frame seemed tiny in comparison. "Surely you don't expect to compete physically." Scylla laughed. "Perhaps you'd like to concede this round." Sarah simply smiled and stepped onto the marked area. As the Zorgon charged, she activated her suit's enhancement systems. To the astonished crowd, the human moved with impossible speed and grace, easily sidestepping the alien's rush. With a quick series of moves, she used the Zorgon's momentum against him, sending him crashing to the ground. A hush fell over the hall. Scylla's eyes narrowed. Impressive, but surely a fluke. The next challenge is one of intellect. A holographic display sprang to life, showing a complex series of equations and alien symbols. "Solve this stellar navigation problem," Sci-Fi commanded. "It would take our best minds hours." Sarah stepped up to the display. As she began to work, her suit's built-in AI, linked to the infiltrated Zorgon systems, fed her information at incredible speeds. Her hands flew over the controls, rearranging symbols and solving equations faster than seemed possible. Within minutes, the problem was solved. The Zorgon scientists in the crowd muttered in disbelief. Sci-Fi's composure began to slip. One final challenge then, a test of technology and warfare. A simulation sprang to life, showing a complex space battle scenario. "Defeat the Zorgon fleet," Sci-Fi sneered. "If you can." As Sarah began to manipulate the controls, something strange happened. The Zorgon ships in the simulation began to move erratically, their weapons systems misfiring. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved with uncanny precision. In the real world, alarms began to blare. Zorgon officers rushed to their stations, only to find their systems unresponsive. The trap had been sprung. "What is the meaning of this?" Sci-Fi shrieked, her royal composure finally shattering. Sarah turned to face the princess, her eyes hard. "This, Your Highness, is humanity showing you exactly what we're capable of. While you were busy mocking us, we were learning, adapting, and yes, infiltrating." The holographic displays around the room flickered, showing scenes from across Zord Prime. Power grids fluctuated, defense systems stood down, and communication networks buzzed with static. "Impossible," Sci-Fi whispered, her 4 eyes wide with shock. "You asked for a demonstration of humanity's abilities," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the now silent hall. "Here it is. We've taken control of your core systems. Your fleet is grounded, your defenses are down, and your empire is, for this moment, at our mercy." The assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as Sarah approached Sci-Fi. "Now, Your Highness, I believe it's time we had a real discussion about our place in the galaxy. As equals." For the first time in her life, Princess Sci-Fi found herself speechless. The human she had dismissed as primitive now stood before her, holding the fate of the Zorgon Empire in her hands. As the reality of the situation sank in, the gathered dignitaries began to murmur. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single stunning moment. Humanity, the underdog, had not only risen to the challenge, but had surpassed all expectations. Sarah Chen stood tall, a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. The showdown was over, but the true test, navigating the new political landscape, was just beginning. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Grand Hall of the Zorgon Imperial Palace, once a symbol of alien superiority, now crackled with tension. Princess Sci-Fi, her iridescent scales dulled with shock, stared at Commander Sarah Chen. The human stood tall, her suit glowing softly, a stark reminder of how badly the Zorgons had underestimated their adversaries. This is impossible," Sci-Fi hissed, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "You cheated." Sarah's face remained impassive. "No, Your Highness. We simply play the game you started, but on our terms." As if to emphasize her point, the holographic displays around the room flickered again, showing scenes of chaos across Zord Prime. Spaceports were shutting down, defense grids powering off, and communication networks dissolving into static. Sci-Fi's mandibles clicked furiously. "You think this display of treachery proves your worth? It only shows that humans are deceitful and cannot be trusted." A murmur ran through the crowd of alien dignitaries. Sarah knew she had to act fast to control the narrative. "What it shows," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the hall, "is that humanity will not be bullied or belittled. We came here in peace, offering friendship. You responded with mockery and challenges. We simply rose to meet them." She turned to address the assembled aliens. To all of you who witnessed this, know that humanity seeks cooperation, not domination. We disabled these systems to prove a point, not to conquer." As if on cue, the screens around the room suddenly came back to life. Zorgan operators reported systems coming back online, but with a twist. They were now more efficient, more powerful than before. What have you done?" Tyla Ara asked, confusion replacing anger in her voice. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "We improved them. Consider it a gift and a demonstration of what cooperation between our species could achieve." The hall erupted in excited chatter. Many of the alien representatives were looking at the humans with new respect, and more than a little fear. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the noise. "Enough." All eyes turned to see Emperor Zixlor, Sila Era's father, enter the hall. His massive form seemed to fill the space, his scales shimmering with barely contained energy. "Father," Sila Era began, "these humans have taught us a valuable lesson." The Emperor interrupted, his voice surprisingly calm. He turned his penetrating gaze to Sarah. "You have shown great cunning, Commander Chen, and great mercy. You could have used this advantage to destroy us, yet you chose restraint." Sarah bowed slightly. "As I said, Your Majesty, humanity seeks cooperation, not conflict." The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his 4 eyes studying Sarah intently. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps we have been too hasty in our judgments. It seems there is much we could learn from each other." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Even Tyla looked stunned. "Father, you can't be serious," she protested. "After what they've done." "After what you provoked, daughter," the Emperor corrected sternly. "Your arrogance and mockery brought us to this point. Perhaps it is time for you to learn humility." Sila Era's scales flushed with embarrassment as she bowed her head. The Emperor turned back to Sarah. "Commander Chen, you came here for a challenge. Instead, you have given us one. I propose a new contest, one of cooperation rather than competition. Let us see what our species can achieve together." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. This was an unexpected turn, but a welcome one. "We would be honored, Your Majesty." As the Emperor began to outline his proposal, the mood in the hall shifted. What had started as a contest of superiority was transforming into something far more valuable, the first steps towards true interspecies collaboration. In the midst of it all, Sarah caught Sila Era's eye. The princess's expression was a mix of resentment and grudging respect. Sarah gave her a small nod. There would be challenges ahead, old prejudices to overcome, but this was a start. As the discussions continued late into the night, news of the events on Zorg Prime spread across the galaxy. The story of how humanity turned a challenge into an opportunity for peace would be told for generations to come. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other alien races watched and wondered about these humans who had managed to humble the mighty Zorgan Empire not through force, but through ingenuity and restraint. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and a new era of interstellar relations was dawning. The days following the dramatic showdown on Zorg Prime were a whirlwind of activity. News of the events spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, causing a sensation in every corner of known space. The mighty Zorgan Empire, long considered the pinnacle of galactic civilization, had been outmaneuvered by the upstart humans. It was a story too incredible to believe, yet too well documented to deny. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. Commander Sarah Chen and her team returned as heroes, their images plastered across every view screen. Parades were held in their honor, and world leaders clamored to shake their hands. But for Sarah, the real work was just beginning. In a high-security conference room at Earth Alliance headquarters, Sarah sat across from Admiral Zhao, giving her final report. "So," the Admiral said, leaning back in her chair, "you turned a potential war into a cooperation agreement. Impressive work, Commander." Sarah nodded, her face serious. "Thank you, Admiral. But we can't let our guard down. This is just the beginning of a long process. Meanwhile, on Zord Prime, Princess Xyla paced in her private chambers, her scales shimmering with agitation. The events of the past few days had shaken her to her core. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Perhaps it is time for you to learn humility. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was a message from the Emperor, summoning her to the throne room. With a mix of dread and curiosity, Xyla made her way through the winding corridors of the palace. Emperor Zixlor sat on his crystalline throne, his massive form somehow looking older than Xyla had ever seen him. As she approached, he gestured for her to stop. "Daughter," he began, his voice rumbling like distant thunder, "I have made a decision. You will lead our delegation to Earth." Xyla's 4 eyes widened in shock. "Father, I don't understand." The Emperor's gaze was stern but not unkind. "You started this contest with the humans. Now you will see it through to its new conclusion. Learn from them, daughter, and teach them about us. This is how we will build a lasting peace." Across the galaxy, other races watched the unfolding events with keen interest. The Arcturian Confederation, longtime rivals of the Zorgans, saw an opportunity in the shifting balance of power. Their ambassador requested an audience with the Earth Alliance, hoping to forge new alliances. The Quilaxian hive mind, usually indifferent to the affairs of individual species, found itself fascinated by the humans' display of collective action and individual initiative. For the first time in millennia, they reached out to establish communication with a non-hive species. Even the enigmatic void dwellers, beings of pure energy who rarely interacted with corporeal life forms, took notice. Their ethereal transmissions, usually indecipherable to most species, began to show patterns that xenolinguists excitedly claimed were attempts to mimic human languages. Back on Earth, in a small, sunlit office, Sarah Chen looked out over the bustling city below. A holographic display showed news from across the galaxy. Zorgan ships engaging in joint maneuvers with Earth vessels, cultural exchange programs being established, and scientific collaborations yielding breakthroughs in various fields. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Jack, her faithful second-in-command. "Commander," he said with a grin, "the Zorgan delegation has arrived. And you won't believe who's leading it." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Princess Xyla." Jack nodded. "The one and only. Looks like you made quite an impression." As they walked to the meeting room, Sarah felt a mix of emotions. The challenge she had accepted on that fateful day had led to consequences far beyond anything she could have imagined. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was at the center of that change. The doors slid open, revealing Princess Xyla and her entourage. The Zorgan royal still carried herself with pride, but there was a new glint in her eyes, curiosity, and perhaps a grudging respect. "Commander Chen," Xyla said, her voice carefully neutral. "We meet again." Sarah stepped forward, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Earth, Your Highness. I believe we have much to discuss." As Xyla hesitantly took Sarah's hand, both knew that this was more than a diplomatic meeting. It was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one that would be written together. The story of how a human commander stood up to alien royalty and changed the course of interstellar relations would be told for generations to come. It served as a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from domination, but from understanding and cooperation. As the sun set on this historic day, casting a golden glow over the Earth and distant Zord Prime, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what this unexpected partnership between humans and Zorgans would bring. The future, vast and unknown, beckoned with infinite possibilities.